Ladies and gentlemen, there will come a time in your life when people will smile to your face while quietly praying for your failure. They'll question your worth, twist your truth, and celebrate your setbacks, not because you're weak, but because your strength reminds them of everything they gave up on. And that's exactly when you rise. That's when you look them in the eye and say, "You wanted to see me break? Watch me become unbreakable?" There's something you need to understand about toxic people. They don't just dislike your success, they fear it. They fear your strength, your confidence, and the quiet certainty that comes from knowing who you are. They want to see you small because it makes them feel big. They want to see you doubt yourself because it makes their own insecurities a little easier to live with. They want to see you hesitate, stumble, second guess. Because when you shine too brightly, it exposes how dim they've allowed their own lives to become. But here's the truth. They don't get to define you. They don't get to decide how far you go. You do. And the moment you understand that, you become unstoppable. Weakness isn't what they see in you. It's what they hope to create. That's the game. They push buttons, twist words, question your worth. They disguise envy as concern. They make cruelty sound like advice. And when you finally stand up for yourself, they call you too much, too sensitive, too ambitious. But the people who tell you that you're too much are almost always the ones who've settled for too little. Don't shrink to fit into spaces that were never built for someone like you. Don't apologize for wanting more. You are not here to make other people comfortable with your potential. You are here to live it, fully, unapologetically, relentlessly. Toxic people feed on reaction. They thrive on chaos. They draw energy from your frustration, your confusion, your need to explain yourself. They want you tangled in their web, constantly defending, proving, pleasing. The more you engage, the more they feed. But when you refuse to play, when you detach and rise above, something remarkable happens. They lose power, because power is not in their words. It's in your response. You want to show them you're unbeatable? Don't give them what they're looking for. Give them silence. Give them focus. Give them success so undeniable it makes their bitterness irrelevant. Strength isn't loud. It's not a performance. It's the quiet decision you make every morning to keep moving, no matter who doubts you. It's the discipline to keep your emotions in check, to respond with clarity instead of chaos. It's the self-control that says, "You don't get access to my peace." Every time you hold your ground without losing your center, you show them something they can't stand to see: resilience. Real strength doesn't need validation, and it doesn't need an audience. It simply endures. You will encounter people who look at your confidence and call it arrogance. They'll take your kindness for weakness, your empathy for naivete. Let them. Their perception of you is not your problem. You can't convince a toxic mind to see clearly, and you shouldn't waste your energy trying. Energy is your most valuable resource. Guard it like your life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. What you give your attention to grows. Stop watering weeds. Start feeding your purpose. The world is full of people who gave up not because they couldn't make it, but because they let someone convince them they didn't deserve to. Don't become one of them. The voice that says, "You're not good enough," is rarely your own. It's a collection of echoes. The things you've been told, the judgments you've absorbed, the doubts you've inherited. But here's the thing about echoes. They fade when you stop shouting back. You silence them by taking action, by proving, not to them, but to yourself, that you can. When you've been underestimated long enough, there comes a point when you stop needing to explain yourself. You just start executing. You let your results speak. That's where real power lives. In composure, in consistency, in the refusal to quit. You will never meet a truly strong person who spends their time tearing others down. Weak people attack what they don't understand. Strong people build. Be the builder. Let them gossip. Let them doubt. You just keep constructing the life they swore you'd never have. Toxic people are not obstacles. They are tests. They reveal how much control you really have over yourself. Can you stay calm when they provoke you? Can you keep your focus when they distract you? Can you remain kind without being naive, strong without being cruel, confident without being arrogant? That's mastery. And that mastery is what makes you unbeatable. Because the person who controls their emotions controls the outcome. Every single time. Some people won't like you no matter what you do. You could be the most talented, generous, humble person in the room, and they'd still find a reason to tear you down. That's not about you. That's about the storm inside them that they refuse to face. Don't take it personally. You are not responsible for someone else's darkness. You are only responsible for making sure it doesn't dim your light. When someone tries to manipulate or belittle you, remember this. It's a reflection of their limits, not yours. They can only meet you at the level of their own growth, and when you outgrow them, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, they will try to pull you back down. Misery doesn't want company, it demands it. But you're not obligated to attend every battle you're invited to. Walk away with your head high. Nothing unsettles a toxic person more than your refusal to engage. Show them you are unbeatable by doing the one thing they never expect. Thriving. Keep learning. Keep showing up. Keep walking toward the life that scares them to watch you build. Not because you owe them proof, but because your resilience is the answer to their doubt. You don't owe explanations. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself progress. There will be moments when it feels lonely, when the silence of cutting off toxic energy feels heavier than the noise of keeping it. But that silence is where your strength grows. It's in that space between who you were and who you're becoming. You'll learn that peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the mastery of it. It's the ability to stand in the middle of chaos and still know exactly who you are. So let them talk. Let them project. Let them underestimate. None of it changes the truth. You've survived too much, learned too much, built too much to break now. Every time someone doubted you, they handed you fuel. Every insult became a workout for your mind. Every betrayal, a lesson in discernment. You've been forged in the fire they thought would destroy you. That's what unbeatable looks like. Not untouched, but unbroken. They want to see you weak? Let them watch you rise instead. Let them see the discipline in your eyes, the calm in your voice, the power in your restraint. Let them realize too late that what they mistook for softness was strategy. You didn't lose your temper because you were scared. You stayed quiet because you were in control. You didn't fight for their attention because you were too focused on your mission. You didn't beg for their approval because you already knew your worth. Every time you choose growth over gossip, peace over drama, purpose over revenge, you win. You become the kind of person that toxic people can't touch, can't manipulate, can't defeat. And that's what they fear most. Not that you'll fight back, but that you'll outgrow them completely. Because when you reach that level, when their words can no longer reach you, you don't just show them you're unbeatable. You become proof that strength built from struggle is the most powerful force there is. And here's what they'll never admit. They knew what you were capable of long before you did. They saw the potential, the fire, the hunger in you, and it terrified them. So they tried to break it early. They used doubt as a weapon and ridicule as a shield. They tried to chip away at your confidence piece by piece, hoping you'd never realize your own power, because once you do, they can't control you anymore. That's what this has always been about, control. Toxic people crave it. They manipulate through guilt, fear, and chaos, anything to keep you questioning yourself. The moment you stop asking for their validation, they lose their grip. That's when they panic. When you start rising, they'll call you different names: arrogant, selfish, detached. Let them. Those labels are just the noise that insecure people make when they can no longer manipulate you through kindness. Don't waste energy defending your evolution. You outgrew the version of yourself that tolerated their poison, and they can't stand it. Growth offends those who refuse to grow. Your confidence is an act of rebellion to those who built their comfort around your self-doubt. Every time you put yourself first, you're rewriting the narrative. You're saying, I no longer accept less than I deserve. You're saying, I'm done living small so others can feel big. That kind of clarity scares people who live in denial. But you can't dim your light just because someone else refuses to open their eyes. Shine anyway, even if it blinds them, especially if it blinds them. Understand this. You are not here to survive people. You're here to master yourself. The moment you stop chasing acceptance and start cultivating strength, everything changes. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop fighting battles that drain you and start choosing ones that build you. You stop proving your worth and start protecting your peace. And that, right there, is power. The quiet kind, the unshakable kind. Toxic people mistake empathy for weakness, but empathy is not weakness. It's awareness. You see things they can't. You understand what drives their behavior, but you don't have it to excuse it. You can forgive someone and still never allow them near you again. Forgiveness is freedom. Reconciliation is optional. You can have compassion without access. You can wish someone healing while making sure they never have the chance to harm you again. That's not cruelty. That's maturity. People will test you to see if you're still the same person they once controlled. They'll try to reopen doors you've closed, push buttons you've learned to guard. But when you stay calm, when you refuse to react, it disarms them completely. They don't know what to do with a version of you that doesn't need their approval. They don't know how to manipulate someone who doesn't respond to guilt. Your composure becomes your armor. Your silence becomes your power move. Never confuse walking away with weakness. It takes more strength to step back from chaos than it does to engage in it. Anyone can fight, anyone can yell, but it takes real power to protect your energy and preserve your focus. You don't owe anyone your participation in their drama. The moment you realize that, you become untouchable. Every obstacle you've faced has been preparing you for this version of yourself. The disappointments, the betrayals, the nights you questioned everything. They weren't wasted. They were your training. Every scar carries a lesson, and those lessons are your foundation. You've learned who's real, who's not, and most importantly, who you are when everything falls apart. That's priceless knowledge. You earned that. You don't need to chase revenge. The most powerful revenge is elevation. Keep rising. Keep building. The higher you go, the quieter their noise becomes. You don't need to prove them wrong with words. Prove them wrong with results. Success speaks in silence. Let them watch from the sidelines while you do what they said you couldn't. Every victory you achieve is a reminder that they never had the power they thought they did. There will be moments when you question whether it's worth it, the loneliness, the detachment, the rebuilding. But it is, because what you gain is peace, clarity, strength, and freedom. The kind of freedom that comes from knowing no one can control you emotionally ever again. That's worth everything. You will start to attract people who match your energy, not the ones who drain it. People who celebrate you without conditions. People who respect your boundaries because they have their own. That's what happens when you level up. The quality of your circle changes. You won't have to explain your worth to anyone anymore. You'll just live it. There's a moment, a shift, where you realize the things that once triggered you no longer have power. The insults bounce off, the gossip fades, the drama feels small. That's when you know you've grown. That's when you know you've built something unshakable inside you. You can't fake that kind of strength. You earn it through every experience that tried to break you. Toxic people rely on reaction, so starve them of it. They expect you to argue, to defend, to chase. Instead, do nothing. Let your calm destroy them. Let your consistency confuse them. Let your success silence them. The more you focus on building your own life, the more irrelevant theirs becomes to yours. Eventually, they'll have no choice but to look elsewhere for chaos because you've stopped being their source of it. Remember that your energy is currency. Stop spending it where there's no return. Invest it in your goals, your health, your growth. Every time you redirect your energy from people to purpose, you multiply your strength. You start moving differently. You stop explaining yourself. You stop doubting your instincts. You start trusting the quiet voice inside you that always knew the way. You were never weak. You were just learning. Learning who deserved your loyalty and who didn't. Learning the difference between love and attachment, between kindness and self-sacrifice. Or learning boundaries, the hard way. And that's okay. Because those lessons don't just make you stronger, they make you wiser. Now you see the patterns. You recognize manipulation before it starts. You sense the shift in energy the moment someone's intentions don't match their words. That awareness, that intuition, that's your superpower. You've built it through experience, through pain, through growth. That's what makes you unbeatable. You don't just survive anymore. You anticipate, you navigate, you rise with precision. The best thing you can do for yourself is to stop trying to change toxic people. They don't need your saving, they need your absence. The moment you walk away, you give them the chance to face themselves. And that's something they've avoided their entire lives. You can't heal in the same environment that hurt you. Walk away not because you're giving up, but because you're choosing yourself. One day you'll look back and realize that all the chaos, all the conflict, all the people who tried to break you, they were teachers. They showed you exactly what you would never allow again. They gave you contrast, clarity, purpose. They were the push that forced you to find your strength. Without them, you might never have discovered the power that was inside you all along. You don't owe anyone the old version of you. You've evolved, you've earned the right to be at peace, and you don't need to explain that to anyone who refuses to understand it. People will always have opinions. Let them talk. They're watching your life like it's a movie, but you're the one writing the script. Keep writing, keep directing, keep owning the narrative. Every time you rise from something that was meant to destroy you, you show others that it's possible. You become proof that pain can turn into purpose, that strength can be built from struggle. That's why your growth matters. Not just for you, but for everyone watching silently, hoping they can do the same. You're giving them permission to believe again. So stand tall, speak with purpose, move with intention. You've been through enough to know that nothing and no one can stop what's meant for you. You've built yourself in the fire. You've sharpened your spirit through every challenge. You've learned that real power doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from mastering yourself. They wanted to see you weak, but all they did was help you discover how strong you really are. You've faced storms and still found calm. You've walked through chaos and kept your direction. You've been doubted, underestimated, and betrayed, and you still didn't break. That's not luck. That's discipline. That's resilience. That's power. Keep showing them what they never expected, a version of you they can't reach, can't manipulate, can't shake. A version of you that no longer seeks approval, no longer tolerates toxicity, no longer explains peace. They'll realize too late that the strength they tried to destroy is the very strength that set you free. And the moment you reach that level of strength, life begins to unfold differently. The noise that used to distract you becomes background static. The people who once intimidated you start to look smaller, not because they changed, but because you finally outgrew the version of yourself that feared them. You start to see through manipulation as easily as you see through glass. Lies don't sting the way they used to. Insults don't stick. You realize that nothing anyone says about you can alter who you are when you know yourself deeply. That's the real power. Not to dominate others, but to be unshakable within yourself. You'll notice that the more grounded you become, the quieter you get. You no longer need to prove your worth or broadcast your growth. You've learned that true power is silent. You don't need to announce that you've healed. Your peace speaks for itself. You don't need to clap back at every insult. Your presence makes the noise irrelevant. This kind of calm unnerves toxic people because they thrive on reaction, and your calm is a mirror showing them everything they've lost control over. When they can't reach you emotionally, they'll try to reach you through others. They'll plant seeds of doubt, twist narratives, attempt to rewrite history. Let them. The truth has a way of revealing itself over time. Lies are temporary currency. They always lose value. You don't have to defend yourself to those who already believe in your integrity, and you'll never convince those who are committed to misunderstanding you. Protect your peace, not your reputation. The right people will see the truth without explanation. You've come too far to let someone else's chaos pull you back into the person you used to be. You've fought for this stability. You've rebuilt yourself from pieces no one thought could come together again. You've cried in silence, healed in private, and now you stand in a strength so refined it doesn't need validation. That's not arrogance. That's survival turned mastery. You've learned the hard way that not everyone deserves access to you, and that realization changes everything. When you cut off toxic energy, you're not being cruel. You're protecting what you've built. You're saying, I will not let your storms destroy my calm. That's not selfish. That's self-respect. And the more you respect yourself, the less tolerance you'll have for anything that threatens your peace. It's not that you've become cold, it's that you've become clear. You see what drains you, what distracts you, what disrespects you, and you refuse to entertain it anymore. Some people will accuse you of changing, and they'll be right. You have changed. You've evolved. You're no longer fueled by the need to prove anything. You don't chase love, approval, or understanding. You've learned to be your and validation. That's why they can't control you anymore. People can't manipulate a person who doesn't fear being alone. They can't guilt trip someone who doesn't rely on their approval. Your independence terrifies them because it means they no longer hold the keys to your peace. You'll start to realize that your greatest weapon was never anger. It was self-control. It was the ability to choose your response, even when everything inside you wanted to react. That's how warriors are made, not through rage, but through discipline. You've trained your mind to stay still when the world tries to provoke you. You've taught your heart not to chase closure where none exists. You've learned to accept that some people will never see the truth, and that's no longer your burden to carry. Your silence will start to do the talking. The way you move, the way you build, the way you carry yourself, it will all speak louder than anything you could ever say. That's what happens when you rise above toxicity. You stop competing, you stop arguing, you stop explaining, you simply exist at a higher level. And the people who can't match that energy will remove themselves because they can't breathe in the altitude you've reached. When you begin walking in your strength, you start to attract peace in everything. In your work, in your relationships, in your daily life. You'll notice that opportunities flow more easily, not because life got easier, but because your energy stopped resisting itself. You're no longer torn between who you are and who people want you to be. You've aligned your inner world, and that alignment creates momentum. You stop forcing things. You start allowing them. You'll feel lighter because you're no longer carrying other people's expectations. You'll feel stronger because you're standing in your truth without apology. You'll feel freer because you're not trapped in old stories about who you used to be. That's the beauty of healing. It gives you back to yourself. And once you have yourself again, you'll never trade that peace for chaos, no matter how familiar it once felt. Every time someone underestimates you now, it becomes fuel, not to prove them wrong, but to keep proving yourself right. You know what you're capable of. You've seen yourself rise from places that should have ended you. You've seen your own resilience in action. So when people doubt you now, it almost makes you smile, because you know they have no idea who they're dealing with anymore. You've become the version of yourself that once felt impossible. And here's the thing, your strength doesn't mean you're unfeeling. It means you've learned to feel deeply without being controlled by those feelings. You can care and still have boundaries. You can love and still protect yourself. You can forgive without ever forgetting the lesson. Emotional intelligence isn't about shutting down, it's about managing your power. And your emotions, when directed with purpose, are the most powerful force you have. You'll reach a point where the things that once consumed you now barely register. The conversations that used to drain you become unnecessary. The apologies you once chased no longer matter. That's what healing looks like. Detachment from what no longer serves your growth. You've realized that closure isn't something they give you, it's something you decide. You don't need an apology to move on. You don't need acknowledgement to validate your pain. You just move, forward, focused, free. People may still try to provoke you, to test the boundaries they once crossed so easily, but they'll find out quickly that access has been revoked. You've built walls not from bitterness, but from wisdom. Those walls aren't meant to keep love out, they're meant to keep poison out. The difference is intention. You're not guarded out of fear, you're guarded out of self-awareness. You know what you've overcome, and you won't risk your peace again for the comfort of familiarity. It's not your job to convince anyone that you've changed. Let your actions reveal it. Let your consistency prove it. The ones meant to walk with you on this next chapter won't need convincing. They'll recognize your growth because they're growing too. Everyone else will fade naturally, and that's how it should be. Not every relationship is meant to survive your transformation. Some were only meant to teach you who not to be. As you keep rising, you'll find that your focus sharpens. You stop chasing everything and start choosing selectively. You become deliberate with your time, your words, your energy. You understand that attention is power, and you give it only to what aligns with your purpose. That's how unbeatable people operate, not through aggression, but through clarity. They don't waste time proving, they spend time progressing. And one day, when you look in the mirror, you'll see it. Not perfection, but peace. Not the absence of scars, but the presence of wisdom. You'll realize that the person staring back at you isn't the same one who used to doubt, cry, or question. This version of you has fire in their eyes and stillness in their soul. That's what surviving toxic people does. It refines you. It shapes you into someone so steady that no storm can touch your foundation again. The same people who once laughed at your struggles will watch your growth in disbelief. They'll wonder how you did it. But they won't understand that your strength wasn't built overnight. It was built every time you chose discipline over despair, boundaries over chaos, peace over drama. You didn't get here by luck. You earned it through relentless resilience. You've become the living example of what it means to rise, rebuild, and reclaim your power. They wanted to see you weak, but you turned their doubt into drive. You turned their disrespect into determination. You turned even. Wound into wisdom. And now, you walk through life with a kind of confidence that doesn't need to shout, it simply exists. That's how you show them you're unbeatable. By standing tall, unshaken, and completely in command of yourself. And the more you grow into that power, the more you realize that strength was never about never falling. It was about learning how to rise differently every single time. You've been through storms that would have buried other people, yet here you are, not just standing, but standing stronger, wiser, calmer. Every fall taught you something about balance. Every wound taught you something about healing. Every disappointment stripped away the illusions that once blinded you. Now you see life as it truly is, not fair, not predictable, but full of moments that either test you or transform you. You've learned how to use both. The truth is, the people who tried to break you didn't understand the kind of spirit they were dealing with. They mistook kindness for weakness, compassion for compliance. They thought they could drain you, diminish you, define you. What they never realized was that you were built for endurance. They saw the softness on the surface, but never saw the steel underneath. You didn't just survive their chaos, you studied it. You learned how manipulation works, how projection feels, how control disguises itself as care. And now, that awareness protects you. You no longer walk into traps because you can recognize them before they're even set. You've come to understand that energy doesn't lie. Words can deceive, but energy never does. You can feel when someone's intentions don't match their expression. You can sense when someone's praise carries poison underneath. You don't ignore those instincts anymore. You've learned to trust them, because intuition is the wisdom of experience speaking quietly through your soul. It tells you when to step back, when to stay silent, and when to walk away without explanation. What makes you unbeatable now isn't that you don't get hurt. It's that you don't stay hurt. You process, you release, you rebuild. You don't suppress pain, you use it. Pain has become your teacher, not your master. You've stopped asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and started asking, "What did this teach me?" That shift changes everything. It takes you out of the role of a victim and puts you back in the position of power. You stop waiting for apologies and start creating progress. You stop needing closure and start creating clarity. You stop hoping people will change and start changing your environment instead. You've discovered that peace is not something you stumble upon. It's something you build brick by brick. You build it every time you set a boundary, every time you refuse to engage in drama, every time you say no without guilt. Peace is the reward of self-discipline. It's the byproduct of emotional maturity. It's not that life stops being chaotic. It's that chaos stops being allowed in your space. And once you taste that level of peace, you'll protect it like your life depends on it. Because in a way, it does. Toxic people will still try to find cracks in your armor, but they'll soon realize there's nothing left to manipulate. You've closed the doors they used to walk through. They can knock, but no one's answering. They can provoke, but you don't respond. They can gossip, but it doesn't touch your truth. That's what real detachment looks like. Not coldness, but control. You've learned to be in the world without being consumed by it. You start to realize how much time you once wasted trying to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't do that anymore. You've accepted that some people need to twist your truth to make their lies make sense. Let them. Their perception doesn't define you. Your character does. The people who know your heart don't need convincing, and the ones who don't never mattered. You owe no one an explanation for your growth. There will come a point where you look back on everything that once hurt you and feel something surprising. Gratitude. Gratitude not for the pain itself, but for the person it shaped you into. Without those trials, you wouldn't have developed the strength, the awareness, the discernment that now guide you. You'll thank the people who underestimated you because they forced you to build resilience. You'll thank the doors that closed because they redirected you toward better ones. Every rejection was protection in disguise. Every loss was preparation for a greater version of you. And you'll realize something else. The version of you that was desperate for acceptance wouldn't survive the life you're stepping into now. You needed to outgrow that person to handle the weight of this next chapter. You've become someone who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't settle. You've learned to walk away not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring about yourself more. That shift is power. That's what makes you untouchable. When people see you now, they may think your calm means you've had it easy. They won't see the nights you wrestled with doubt, the mornings you had to rebuild your confidence from zero. They won't see the conversations you had with yourself to keep going when quitting felt easier. They'll just see the glow, not the grit it took to earn it. But that's fine because you didn't do it for recognition. You did it for peace. You did it to finally feel at home within yourself. You've learned that solitude isn't loneliness. It's clarity. It's the space where your thoughts organize themselves, where your intuition gets louder, where you recharge your power. You no longer fear being alone because you've learned to like the person you've become. You've learned that the world gets quieter when you stop seeking noise for validation. You don't need to fill the silence anymore. You've made peace with it, and that peace becomes magnetic. The right people will be drawn to it. Those who value authenticity, consistency, kindness, and strength. You'll start attracting relationships built on mutual respect, not convenience. Connections where you don't have to shrink, pretend, or overgive just to feel safe. You'll finally experience what it means to be seen without having to perform. And once you experience that, you'll never go back to toxic dynamics again, no matter how familiar they feel. The difference between who you were and who you are now is that you've stopped waiting for permission. You don't wait for opportunities. You create them. You don't wait for the world to validate your worth. You live it. You've stopped apologizing for your ambition, your intensity, your focus. You've realized those aren't flaws. They're signs of purpose. You were never too much. You were just around people who were too afraid to match your energy. You've learned that discipline is love in action. Every boundary you hold, every goal you pursue, every habit you stick to, that's self-love. It's not about feeling good all the time. It's about doing what's necessary to keep growing. You've stopped chasing temporary highs and started building lasting foundations. You've stopped letting emotions dictate direction and started letting purpose lead instead. That's how you win. Quietly, consistently, relentlessly. The world will test that strength again. There will be new challenges, new people trying to test your patience, new situations trying to shake your peace, but you'll handle them differently now. You won't break, you'll bend. You won't panic, you'll pause. You won't react, you'll respond. You've built a different kind of power, not loud, but unyielding. You've become the calm in the storm, not the one running from it. You'll start living with intention, not impulse. You'll start choosing long-term peace over short-term pleasure. You'll start valuing presence over attention, growth over comfort, and purpose over approval. That's what it means to be unbeatable, not invincible, but centered. You no longer need everything to go right, you just need to stay right within yourself. You've stepped into a season where your energy introduces you before you even speak. People can feel your confidence, your clarity, your boundaries. You don't have to prove your strength anymore, you embody it. And that presence will do something powerful. It will remind others of their own strength. Without saying a word, your example will give them permission to stand taller, to set boundaries, to walk away from what no longer serves them. That's legacy. That's impact. You've transformed every setback into structure, every wound into wisdom, every loss into leverage. You've turned pain into purpose and silence into strategy. You've learned that the world doesn't reward those who complain about the storm. It rewards those who learn to walk through it with grace. You've become that person. You've become the one who doesn't just survive adversity, but evolves because of it. And now you move differently, not because you're better than anyone, but because you finally understand your value. You don't settle for disrespect disguised as love. You don't engage with gossip disguised as concern. You don't confuse comfort with peace. You've refined your standards, and that's what makes your power permanent. They wanted to see you weak, but you've shown them something far more frightening. Someone who cannot be shaken, cannot be swayed, and cannot be stopped.